Welcome to another edition of the Dogger Pass podcast. This is for UFC 306, Noche UFC, Cody Saftic, brought to you by Saudi Arabia. I guess it's Riyadh season is what they do. Who really cares? Taking the bag. But it should be really cool from like a production standpoint. If people who are like big about like pacing of UFC cards, like there's going to be a lot of features. That's the general gist of it that I get. There's only 10 fights for us to break down this week. You were kind of trashing on this card last week, Cody. Do you still feel that way?
No, because listen, like you said, it's going to be a production marvel. They're going to go out there with sweet graphics. The rumors are like every fight is going to take place in a different planet. And what that means is if you ever watch like on like Mars and there's fighting in the pit below, but like the overhang, this is actually in the venue. So listen, it's going to look awesome. It's got the best headliner of the year for my money's worth. The card has a lot of action. It's just like you're saying, it's a 10 fight card because Dana said it was too expensive to add more fights. So 10 fight card. If somebody happens to get sick, if somebody happens to pull out, it would be a shot in the arm. And yeah, I just think when you say you spend $30 million on it and no one's ever going to run a show this great ever again, you got a lot of standards to live up to. And I just don't know that it's going to live up to that necessarily. And then you mentioned it. It's a Mexican love letter from Dana White to Mexico, paid for by the Saudis, happening in Las Vegas. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
No, it's a little bit.
It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. He's apparently dumped like $8 million of his own money into it because the UFC like finance department is just like, yo, we're trying to get renewed and renegotiated. They can't, investors can't be looking at this and being like, they just dumped a pile of money for no reason. So he's going all out, and now the expectation is going to be something crazy outside of this crazy good main event. There's nice fights. I just don't know that it's the greatest card I've ever seen in my life.
No, but the main event is a great stylistic matchup. Two, top guys at 135 pounds right now, and very, very different styles. Shigashan O'Malley taking on Merab Dvalishvili. Shigashan can be had for minus 130. The challenger can be had for plus 110. I mean, Merab's it seems like it's been a bit of a weird training camp for Merab, and Dana wishes he didn't post a whole bunch of the stuff on social media that he did. Obviously, he had like the cut over his eye. Some people have kind of located potentially a small little staph infection on his arms. I mean, Merab's gonna Merab. The guy's got insane cardio, so much so that he just turns fights into you defending the takedown over the course of 25 minutes. Do I think it's going to work against O'Malley? It very well could. There haven't been too many guys like really spamming takedowns against O'Malley here, but you gotta figure Sean O'Malley's like known that this fight has been on the horizon for a while. I'm sure he's been working on quote unquote takedown defense. Do I think he'll get taken down? Yes, but do I think he may be able to like time and snipe here? I do. I took a little bit of Sean O'Malley by knockout plus 210, which could be a complete trap because with the new gloves, I mean, knockouts just ain't happening. So maybe I'm falling for it. But I don't know. I just get this sense. I got this feeling in my gut that O'Malley's going to catch him at some point here. What's your take?
Yeah, listen, it's a good feeling. Sean O'Malley's proven that he actually is the real deal. I mean, you can look at the goofiness and the theatrics and he's half-assing it, but the guy's legitimate talent. And you look through a lot of these fights and the current winning streak he's on, he's showing these moments of brilliance. Yeah, there's some lapses here and there, but he's still a young fighter developing. The Peter Yan fight, that's his coming out party. Everybody thought he lost. He gave up 6 takedowns, but Yan goes 6 for 13 on takedowns. So at least he showed a little bit of takedown defense. He showed good grappling chops. He outstruck Peter Yan, which nobody saw coming. And in some way, I guess you could see him winning the fight. He outlanded him. He landed the bigger shots. He hurt Peter Yan. Isn't that what a fight's all about? So kudos to him. Since then, the win over Aljamain Sterling snipes him. Just like you're mentioning, could he snipe a guy? Yeah. And like, I hate to give him the Conor McGregor reference, but man, it's certainly there. Conor was a master of mind games and theatrics, and maybe he's boozing at the bar. And remember, leading up to the Aldo fight, he's in a Brazilian bar with a picture of Aldo drunk with his shirt off, ripping the picture in half and yelling and revving up the crowd. Like, he used to do that. And then he'd play mind games with you and then cause you to come in all pissed off and all hot headed and then walk in right into a trap because he's an excellent counterpuncher. O'Malley is an excellent counterpuncher. You wouldn't say he's a pure power guy, like, oh, the guy's jacked. No, he's this little string bean of a man, but it's precision over power. The same theory as Conor McGregor. He finds the opening, he lands, and when he lands, he does a tremendous amount of damage. He can really generate a lot of power with that long frame, and his striking has proven to be top notch. But again, it's playing those mind games. Aljamain Sterling was coming off a fight with Henry Cejudo, an Olympic gold medalist, where he took Henry down 3 times. His grappling's top notch. He's a BJJ black belt under Matt Serra, and yet he played this striking game. He half-heartedly tried to take down O'Malley, and again, that's another fight where O'Malley's takedown defense looked good. He stuffed those half-hearted Sterling attempts long enough to snipe him into something. Aljamain says after the fact, I should have never taken the fight and I got pressured into it, but also that he fought him the wrong way. He should have grappled. He should have tried to wrestle him. Problem is when you're going in there with him and he's talking all this smack, you're trying to prove a point. It's a bravado thing. And so Merab's got that same thing. He's so hot-headed. He's like, yeah, I want to fight his coach. And the guy disrespected me on a podcast. Who cares if the guy's coach said something about you on a podcast? No, on site. And part of me thinks that even though the clear path of victory here for Merab is to wrestle, and he should wrestle, I'm going to pick Merab on the basis that I think he's going to wrestle. Part of me is like he might play right into the O'Malley game where he's mad, he's hot-headed, and he wants to prove a point. I could beat you out wrestling you, but hell, I outstruck Jose Aldo for 2 rounds. I beat Jose Aldo in the striking game. Why could he not beat Sean O'Malley in the striking game? And if he believes that and he plays that game, he's walking himself into a shot. Now, Merab's cast iron, he's got 35-minute cardio. Hell, he's got 45-minute cardio. He's got a great chin. But, yeah, Marlon Moraes sat him on his ass, and Jose Aldo bopped him up pretty decent in the first round. So guys have hurt him in the past. And O'Malley's another one of these guys that he's a little bit younger, he's a little bit faster, he's a little bit sharper. If he can get Merab to make the mistake, 100% he can capitalize. So I'm thinking if O'Malley wins, his win condition is knockout. Like, I don't know that he wins 3 of the 5 rounds. I don't know that he's winning rounds per se as much as he just survives in these rounds long enough to keep the fight standing and then walk Merab onto something. So why not take O'Malley? I'm going Merab Dvalishvili. Listen, there's a clear wrestling advantage here. And this fight, why it's so beautiful, it's the biggest style clash you've seen in a long time. You've got probably the best striker of the division. He's proven that at this point. He smokes Marlon Chito Vera, 220 significant strikes landed on him. Crazy numbers over a legitimate guy. He's the top striker versus the top wrestler. The guy takes down everybody. The guy grinds everybody. These 2 styles are going to clash. Well, for my money's worth, wrestling's the better style, and that's what Merab should go to. If you've got Peter Yan taking you down 6 times, then what's going to happen when you take on the guy that took Peter Yan down 11 times? Merab's the machine. He just keeps going. And what I'm noticing on this season of the Contender Series is all these Georgian fighters are very skilled, and none of them have cardio. The very few that do, Merab, Ilia Topuria, they win world titles because they can just keep that amazing aggression going. They're so strong. They're so physical. They're so durable. They can just keep going. So again, as much as I like Sean O'Malley and I like the Sugar Show and I want to see it continue, there's a reason why he picked Marlon Vera over Merab Dvalishvili, just like Michael Bisping picked Dan Henderson over a legitimate title defense. It's the reason why a sitting champion doesn't want to fight the number 1 guy. He wants to take the money fight. Is deep down, I don't think he truly believes he can do it. Now, you say tough camp for Merab. I bet it has been because the guy's a madman. He's a little goblin. He goes 110% every single time. Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt it that training twice a day, 6 days a week, he picked up staff on somebody. Wrestling that much would probably do that. I don't doubt that he got cut, accidentally headbutting a training partner while blast doubling them. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Those are the things that'll pop up in training. He's training as hard as he can. You got to give him credit for that. I go back to the takedown numbers. And for the most part, he's coming over 5 takedowns over Henry Cejudo, the Olympic gold medalist. 11 takedowns over Peter Yan. Jose Aldo, that's a tricky one. He actually went 0 for 16 on takedowns against Jose Aldo, who's got notoriously maybe the best takedown defense in division history, and he still got 5 minutes of control time. He just couldn't physically get him down. So outstruck him, outpaced him. That's only a 3-round fight. Give me 5 rounds. Merab probably does take him down. O'Malley, he's got 5 rounds to work with. So such a good fight. Such a good fight. And as much as I'd love to shit on Dana and be like, it's a Mexican love letter on Mexican Independent Day called Noche, and there's not even a Spanish guy in the main event. Technically, there is, because Merab Dvalishvili is the Georgian Mexican, and Sean O'Malley's from Arizona. Everybody from Arizona got a little bit of Mexican in them. So I love this headliner, dude. I really do. But the pick for me is Merab Dvalishvili by decision.
I mean, let's face it. O'Malley is their biggest active star right now.
100%.
Like, I don't even think it's really debatable whatsoever. You've got McGregor. Who knows if he's ever going to come back? He's talking about, like, you know, running for president of Ireland. And then John Jones is doing John Jones things. I mean, injured, but you never know with him. Even when he's healthy again, like, is he going to get himself in trouble again? Very much on the table. So for now, it's the biggest fight that they can make, I think. Definitely at 135 pounds. So can't wait for the main event of UFC 306. All right, we've got the trilogy fight between Alexa Grasso and Valentina Shevchenko. Grasso is a minus 140 favorite. Shevchenko can be had for plus 120. Action coming in on the champion right now. Obviously, last time out, split draw between the two of them. And then before that, you know, Shevchenko was winning the fight and then got caught in a submission in round 4, but was very, very, very clearly winning that fight leading into the championship rounds. But every fight that goes by, it's like Valentina's just getting a little bit older. She's 5 years older than Grasso. All equal in a pick'em. I would definitely lean towards the champion here. It's close enough that I'll pick her. I don't really intend on betting Grasso, to be perfectly honest. I just think it's a very, very close competitive fight. 100% could go either way, but give me youth over experience here. What about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, we always talk about the men's divisions and how once you hit 35, it's not going good for you. I think the stat is like nobody's defended the title or won the title 35 or older, anything below 155 pounds. Well, the same thing should be applicable to the women's divisions. Valentina Shevchenko is one of the greatest champions for sure. This is a girl that almost beat Amanda Nunes, arguably beat her in that rematch anyways, and yet was fighting up at 135. At 125, she's been extremely dominant. But you see her go from being extremely dominant, striking is amazing. Multiple-time Muay Thai champion, smokes Joanna Jędrzejczyk, both in Muay Thai and MMA, striking for days. And then the older she's gotten, she's relying way more on her wrestling, her offensive wrestling, mostly being able to control opponents. Submissions, not super high on submissions as much as just a lot of ground control. She'll accumulate 3.5 minutes. The problem is that in those 90 seconds that Grasso is able to switch position and get back up, or hit a reversal and get back up, or get a scramble going, in those 90 seconds she has left to work, it seems like she's landing the bigger shots. At this point, I would suggest that she is the better striker than Valentina, simply because she scored that knockdown in their last fight. She knows that she can hurt Valentina. She knows that she's got the boxing. She seems to have the volume. Valentina relies heavily on this power kicking game, but it's proven to be ineffective against Grasso's boxing. So I feel like Grasso has these edges. Now, in the first fight, Grasso's like, I think Valentina's a minus 180 favorite in the first fight. The second fight, it's like, oh man, it's a lot closer. It's minus 160 Valentina. This time around, Valentina's the underdog. And yet that, to me, that's age. That's age catching up with you. They're like a year removed from the last time that they've competed. And she's now just turned 36 years old. So she's got all the skills in the world, but at some point those skills ever so slightly start to diminish, and I think that's what you're getting at this point. The crazy thing is that this has just been the weirdest trilogy. If you look at the first time that they fought, Valentina's winning on all 3 judges' scorecards before getting caught in a rear naked choke in the 4th round. So she's winning the fight and she ends up getting subbed. It's crazy. It happens. They run it back. Like you said, the second fight, she's also winning the fight. Yeah, Grasso scores a knockdown, but even in that round that she scored the knockdown, she spent 3.5 minutes on her back. So it wasn't like it was the most dominant round going. 5th round comes down to the 5th round. Again, Shevchenko's got that control time, and then boom, it's like 90 seconds left. She's able to reverse position. She takes the back. She flirts with the choke. She lands some ground and pound. Mike Bell scores it a 10-8 round. It's not a 10-8 round. I don't know how you score this a 10-8 round. His scorecard otherwise has Valentina Shevchenko winning. A 10-8 round is what would cause it to be a draw. And he gave it a 10-8 round. So really, she should have won the first fight, but wow, she shouldn't have won the first fight. She got choked out. She's winning the first fight and then makes one small mistake. The second fight, she's also winning, makes one small mistake, and still should have won on the scorecards. So why are we taking Grasso now as the favorite? Seems crazy. Like, I think Pat would say take the women's MMA underdog all day long. But it's the same point that you brought up, and I'm agreeing with you here. It's like age starts to become a factor. That first time, Grasso was not expected to do anything. That second time, it's the first time was a fluke. And again, she does very well. She performs very well. Does better in the striking. Still has some moments on the ground. And we'll talk about Diego Lopes later taking on Brian Ortega, but like this girl had no grappling, right? And then she takes on Diego Lopes as a grappling coach. And then look how far she's gone. She choked out Valentina Shevchenko. She had moments in that second fight. Her grappling's only going to keep progressing. Her boxing's going to keep progressing. Her cardio was already good. Durability, pretty solid. She's a fighter coming into her own and developing. Champion status. You're finally getting paid. You can do this full time. You've got a great team around you. Versus Valentina Shevchenko that's been training 3 times a day since she was 4 years old. She has a Romanian handler and what I have to imagine is adopted sister, stepsister at the very least. And it's just like her whole life's been training. It's always been training camp and new location and new country and new set of skills and new opponent. And maybe she's burnt out or maybe her body's just finally had enough. But I feel like they're in a crossroads and Grosso's on the way up. Shevchenko's either treading water or slightly on the decline. And for that reason, I'll go with Grasso as well.
All right, we got Diego Lopes taking on Brian T-City Ortega, minus 180 for Lopes, plus 155 for Ortega. Who you got?
Yeah, I mean, I took Ortega last time and I was pretty adamant about it, so I feel like I'm being stuck into it this time. But yeah, I wouldn't be lying if I didn't say that the weight cut and the illness last time kind of bothers me. Only because he was very clear and on record saying, I'm going to 155. Then the UFC calls him, fairly short notice, but the UFC calls him and says, would you come back to 145 one more time? He says yes. Again, it's short notice, so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. But then coming to 145 wrecks him. Wrecks him, Paul. This is a guy that would have fought with a blown out ACL, but in this case, he's so unbelievably ill the day of the fight, he can't get cleared. His body shuts down on him. They book this thing, and yeah, Diego Lopes is that young, getting better every day, got a legitimate skill set, proving himself, versus that old savvy veteran that has got a great skill set. It's very similar to our co-main event here. You know Brian Ortega's got an excellent skill set, but at what point are the weight cuts too much? Is his shoulder popping out and dislocating again? Does the cutting weight cause him to be more prone to getting injured because he's dehydrating his muscles and his joints? Like, there's just so many questions that go through your head that are like, is it worth it? But the underdog money just, if it's the PRP pick, fine, let it be. But yeah, I think I'll take Brian Ortega. I like Diego Lopes in terms of he's an all-action guy. He's going to give you some bang for your buck. His striking, although I'm not a huge fan of it, he knocks out Sodi Kusef. He's definitely got some pop in his shot, and he's very willing to engage. His jiu-jitsu, oh my God. I mean, high-level BJJ black belt. As I mentioned, he's Alexa Grasso's coach, and you see the crazy improvements that she's made. This guy's legit. Not only is he a BJJ black belt, but he's going out to these fights and say the Gavin Tucker fight. He's submitting other BJJ black belts. So top-notch guy. His fight with Movsar Evloev almost catches him 3 times. Like, we all know Diego Lopes is a guy that maybe didn't start off his career great, but he's finally found that groove and that rhythm, and he's getting a lot better. The difference is that takedown defense. I don't think he has a very good takedown defense. You'll see in a lot of his fights is that he's welcoming the takedown. He's like, buddy, take me down because I'm going to submit you, probably break your arm or catch you in a triangle choke. Really long limbs, very active off his back. He can even just throw up a high guard and slash you up with elbows, but he does not necessarily defend the takedowns. And to this point, he's never really fought anybody of Brian Ortega's level of grappling. So Brian Ortega, a guy that has got decent wrestling. He's taken down Yair Rodriguez. This is a great stat on Brian Ortega, okay? 3 takedowns on Yair Rodriguez. He also took down Alexander Volkanovski twice. He took down Korean Zombie 3 times. He took down Max Holloway twice. He wants you down. He get you down. And those guys are some of the best defensive wrestlers in the game. Him versus a guy that's welcoming the takedown. I have to imagine Brian ends up on top of him. And then what's the game plan? You're going to triangle a guy whose nickname is quite literally T-City because he's known as Triangle City Brian Ortega. I don't know that that's the greatest game plan. So beat him standing. And I've heard some people mention Brian Ortega, very hittable. That's absolutely fact. He's very hittable. But he's a guy that kind of goes out on his shield. He can take a good punch. Yeah, Rodriguez melted him to the body. Yeah, he got stung in that fight, but he continuously comes forward. He's in great shape. He's proven to have 25-minute cardio, even though this is only a 15-minute fight. What I'm saying is he can push the pace. He can secure takedowns. And again, his striking, people will say he's very hittable, this and that. I would say go back to the Korean Zombie fight. That would probably be the most notable one. 127 significant strikes landed, 2 knockdowns, right? His boxing looked very crisp. It's that when he's fighting Max Holloway, who, for the record, he landed 110 significant strikes on. When he's fighting Volkanovski and Holloway, yeah, guys like that are going to make him look bad. Nobody's saying Diego Lopes is an elite level striker. He's just he's an okay striker. He's got some pop in his shot. I could see him hurting Brian. Yeah, I could see it. I don't necessarily see him knocking out Brian unless Brian's shot in a bad weight cut and blah, 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 blah. Take all the narrative off the table. I don't see Diego Lopes just cleanly knocking him out. So he's going to have to outstrike him for the 15 minutes. Whereas Brian's going to be able to mix in some takedowns. Brian's going to be able to have some success with the striking. Brian's going to be able to keep him on his back foot. I do feel like he's got a lot of advantages, and the plus money associated with him just makes it worth the while for me. Last thing for Diego Lopes, is that last time out against Dan Ige, right? So leading up to the fight, again, you and I did the show, and I picked Brian Ortega, and I outlined all these issues I thought Diego Lopes had in his game. Unfortunately, Brian's too sick to compete. Okay, he pulls out. Dan Ige, guy that's pretty small for the division. People are saying he had a weight advantage because it was up a weight class and he didn't have to cut. Dude, Dan Ige not a very big guy. In fact, I think he could drop down to 35, but we'll save that for another day. Ige takes the fight on like 8 hours notice and just rolls up to the place and like severely underprepared, and yet gives him a hell of a go, man, especially in the 3rd round. So those holes in Diego Lopez's game that we outlined, they're there. And even a gatekeeper fringe contender like Dan Ige can do that. What could potentially a guy like Brian Ortega do? Last but not least, Dan Ige, small featherweight. Brian Ortega thinking about going to 55 because he's a big guy for the weight class. So all these little things plus money, I'm just going to take that shot on Brian Ortega and hope for the best.
Yeah, not much has changed for me. I bet Ortega last time, obviously pulled out. This time, that was one of the bets I had already made. One of my books is hanging a plus 185. So I took for whatever they would allow me on that. Wasn't very much in terms, it was like $400. And then now I'm actually staring at manual review. I'm trying to sneak a couple $100 back through there on that number, just because I think volume wise, like if it just is like a 15-minute striking affair, the bigger shots will be probably landed by Lopes, but volume is king for Ortega, who can put up well over 100 significant strikes over the course of 15 minutes, I think. And then, yeah, like Diego Lopez's takedown defense has been very problematic. And this is the one guy that's like, if Brian Ortega ends up on top, I'd be very, very surprised if Lopes is able to find any sort of success with his own grappling. He'll just spend time on his back there, lose rounds, and it'd be like kind of like the Movsar Evloev fight. So yeah, everything about this fight, they rejected it. Cowards. It's a new account that I've got at this book too. Them's the brace, Cody. But yeah, I still like him at the plus 155, but not getting any more of the plus 185. And yeah, that Ige fight, it's like when I was watching that Ige fight, and I'm like, fair is fair. Took it on like a couple hours notice, but I was like, everything I saw from Diego Lopes in that fight, I mean, round 3 is when he actually tried to grapple. He was 1 of 3 on takedowns against Dan Ige. Everything I saw there kind of led me to believe that, like, if Ortega can show up healthy, make weight, and feel good, I mean, if you give me dog money on Brian Ortega, particularly like plus 150s and up, I'm going to take it. So we're on the same page there.
I'll add one more point on that as well, okay. is that Dan Ige sitting on the couch, okay? In theory, he's sitting on the couch and he sees Diego Lopes needs an opponent. And he's like, with no training camp and no preparation, and having just seen this, thinks to himself, I can beat this guy. That's how little Dan Ige would think about him. Imagine being offered Max Holloway or Alexander Volkanovski or Yair Rodriguez or any of those guys on 8 hours notice. You wouldn't do it. But he thought to himself, I think I can beat him with zero preparation And in the third round, to your point, he outstruck Diego Lopes 25-15 and won the third round with zero preparation. So, yeah, plus money all day. Listen, if it was even money or something, maybe I'd have some reservations. Maybe it's a pass altogether. But for plus money, I'm in, buddy. Give me T-City, Brian Ortega.
All right, we got Daniel Zellhuber taking on Esteban Ribovics, minus 220 for Zellhuber, plus 180 for Ribovics. Who you got?
Yeah, so I think Zellhuber's got the proper game to win. You and I were both pretty high up on this kid at one point. I still think I am. He's only 25 years old. So I'm all about guys losing to realize where do I got to get better. Because this kid's 15-1, right? And then what really realistically what that means is he's 15 lessons given, one lesson learned, right? Learning that lesson has made him that much better. He looked good in the Contender Series. He's got volume. He's got slick counter punching, solid punch, all around boxing, really. Got that Mexican style, solid chin, young kid, solid prospect. But he's also training in Las Vegas. He's also getting some quality rounds in. And they're all high on him that he's got legitimate jiu-jitsu as well. Against Lucas Almeida, he gets buzzed in the first round. And that's the problem with being a kid now taking a talent jump up, is that you're prone to make mistakes. Lucas Almeida gives him a hell of a first round. He comes right back and puts it on him. 115 significant strikes landed, put a takedown in for good measure, wins the fight. Is losing to Trey Ogden. In that fight against Ogden, there was no volume.
Head scratch.
He just stared at him. And Ogden had learned that same lesson in his one fight prior, right? Where it's like, you can just outwork a guy and he's hesitant and nobody's doing anything and you're landing these chopping little low kicks and just outworking him ever so slightly. You'll win. It's a lesson learned for Zellhuber, who since then seems to be putting his pedal on his foot to the pedal. Him versus Lando Venana, clean knockdown, outstrikes him, good volume. Him versus Christos Giagos. Giagos is a madman in that first round. He survives the first round. You know, second round, he puts a beautiful anaconda choke on Giagos as he starts to fade. It's showing that everything's good about him. Not everything's good about him. Solid grappling, solid striking, still in the developmental part of his career, but definitely making those strides. That fight with Francisco Prado, it's almost the same thing. He has a bad first round. He gets buzzed in the first round. The second and the third round, he's long, he's lengthy, he has excellent distance management, and he just keeps throwing. So it's very hard to keep pace with him. Again, the only fight that he just didn't pull the trigger was Ogden, and since then, he seems to have really corrected those mistakes. This fight with Esteban Ribovics, the guy's an absolute madman. You look at his fight with Kamuela Kirk, 115 significant strikes landed. They exchanged takedowns. His last time out against Terrence McKinney, you know, beautiful kick, puts him out, or not kick, sorry, but lands a beautiful shot early on, takes him out. The guy's power personified. I don't know that he can do that for the 15 minutes, pedal to the metal the entire time. Zellhuber's got that kind of style that he doesn't necessarily like to fight inside the pocket all that much. He's long and he's rangy and he's got excellent footwork. This is in the sphere. I assume they're going to be using a big cage for this. He's going to have a lot of mat space to operate with. And Ribovics, who's going to be constantly charging forward, is going to allow him to dart from side to side, land those counter punches, rack up some volume, hurt this guy. And last but not least, I think he could take him down. Well, Kirk's taking you down multiple times. Going to be a problem. Zellhuber's got a far more refined ground game. So if he even gets a couple takedowns, I think he'll make better use of them. That coupled in with the striking advantage. Yeah, he's going to be playing Matador for the most part, but the crowd should be hot for him. I think it'll be an exciting fight, and I think he edges it out. So give me Zellhuber. The money line, minus, what is it currently right now? Minus 225? Minus 220?
Yeah, about that.
I don't love it considering both going to be swinging and it's going to be an all-action fight. Like, that does seem a little bit wide for my liking, but yeah, 25 years old, getting better every time. If you like the performances you've seen out of him so far, expect just a continual growth. Whereas Ribovics, Ribovics pretty crazy, man. And again, some of these wins are really not all that bad, but one has to wonder if you can stretch him into deep waters. Him versus Kirk's a very low-level guy, so going hard in that fight is different. His fight with Loic Radzibadanov, he lands the knockdown, but overall 66 significant strikes landed, and he gave up 11 takedowns. Takedowns is a big part of his issue. Kamuela Kirk takes you down 3 times. Loic took you down 11 times. You're rocking overall a 50 or 60% takedown defense in the UFC. That Zellhuber just appears to be just a striker, but man, this guy's full-time in Vegas like the last 3 or 4 years, and they're very high up on him down there. So I'm thinking sneakily, just like the Giagos fight, Giagos is a good grappler, and he sneaks in that anaconda choke. Like, I don't doubt that him and Ribovics bang it out. Ribovics charges in forward. Zellhuber just catches him believing it's a striking battle and is able to catch him off guard, get an excellent position, and then wrap up the neck. So I will take Zellhuber despite a money line I don't necessarily agree 100% with.
Yeah. You're speaking my language, brother. Like I'm making this up. As soon as I did that, it's like because I was looking at like what's that could be sneaky. Zellhuber by submission. I was looking at the
Absolutely.
Giagos fight,
Absolutely.
and frankly, I've liked both of these guys. I've backed both of these guys. I mean the Zellhuber Ogden fight cost me a whole bunch of money because I just didn't see. He just showed up incredibly flat. It was just a bad performance, but he's young, figuring things out. He's got big advantages here. One, like an 8-inch reach advantage. He uses that length quite well. He's got power. Obviously, he was rocked by Lucas Almeida, but he was able to fight himself back into that fight. He has been rocked in a few spots, don't get me wrong. And Ribovics, I really, really enjoy him, but like his takedown defense is some of the worst in the lightweight division, to be perfectly honest. Zellhuber by submission at like plus 800, plus 900 is what I'm seeing out there right now. That could be like a sneaky little prop here. I think Zellhuber more likely than not can just, like he did against Francisco Prado. I don't know if that matchup's all that different, except for the fact that Prado's takedown defense, I would imagine, is better than Ribovics, because frankly, Ribovics' takedown is some of the worst. I think Zellhuber can kind of just hang out at range and use that massive reach advantage length to pick him apart. But if he takes him down, he could have a big advantage down there. So definitely going to be looking for the best price I can possibly get on Zellhuber by sub. Zellhuber is going to be the pick as well. More often than not, I do believe that he wins by decision, and it's, just minding his P's and Q's and picking apart Ribovics, who's just going to charge into the pocket. But, you know me, trying to make money with a little. Zellhuber by sub seems muy picante. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Ronaldo Rodriguez taking on Ode Osbourne. Ronaldo Rodriguez is a minus 140 favorite. Ode can be had for plus 120. When I think about this fight, Cody, here's my biggest struggle. Like, I think I do see a path to victory for Ode Osbourne. He does what he does against Charles Johnson here. Leans on wrestling. Ronaldo Rodriguez got the second round finish, but he was taken down 4 times by Dennis Bondar in that fight over the course of 2 rounds. So the path to victory is there for Ode Osbourne. But the problem is, we know Ode. It's like he doesn't make great decisions while he's in there.
No.
He doesn't follow the best game plan. He ran right into an overhand right from Tyson Nam. Like he makes some really poor. He grapples with grapplers. That's where my struggle is here. It's just like it's tempting. I'm thinking about it, but it's like, is Ode just gonna Ode? I don't know. Gun to my head, I think I would probably take the slight plus money at flyweight. Fights are competitive, yada, yada, yada. But, I don't know if I can actually put some actual money behind that, Cody. What's your take here?
Yeah, I think I have to because he's plus money. And for the record, the plus money was way better a few days ago, but money's coming in on him because what you have here is a flyweight fight, which are always highly unpredictable. Anything could happen. But Ode Osbourne has 9 fights in the UFC. Like, he's an established veteran. Beyond that, he's got a couple okay wins. He beat Charles Johnson. You can't take that away from him. He fought Manel Kopp. He fought Tyson Nam. He fought Asu Amabayev. And he fought Jafel Fito. So his losses are to really good guys for the most part. And he's got a couple decent wins sprinkled into the mix. The guy can strike. He's long. He's an athletic fighter, but he can also mix in those takedowns need be. Where you say he makes questionable IQ judgment in there. Yeah, I agree. My biggest problem with him is that he's got no cardio. And so you'll see in a lot of these fights, he starts off really well and then just absolutely fades out down the stretch, which, I got problems with. But that Charles Johnson fight is actually brilliant ring IQ. It's 1-1. Actually, one judge has got him winning. One judge got Johnson winning. One judge got 1-1. So the third round's, you got to win it. And he gets kicked in the groin and he takes the full 5 minutes. And then he's good to go. And then he's good to go and he goes out and he wins the third round against Charles Johnson. So brilliant thinking there, O'Day, because beyond that, it's a cardio issue. And that's the only reason I think that Ronaldo Rodriguez would win this fight, is that he pushes a hell of a pace and seems to be able to push a hell of a pace for 15 minutes, whereas O'Day Osbourne doesn't necessarily like fighting at any type of trepid speed. Like he likes to, take his time and flirt with the jab and dance around to the outside, mix in some takedowns and neutralize you. Here's my thing with Ronaldo Rodriguez, right? So he's on the Contender Series in 2020 against Jerome Rivera. He's 21 years old, so he's just a kid. He probably shouldn't be there, but he is all the same. And it's not a great performance, man. He got 2 takedowns, but he overall got outstruck 48-19 against Jerome Rivera. Jerome Rivera went on to fight in the UFC, actually has a loss to O'Day Osbourne, and went 0-3 overall and then got released. So, yeah, he's 21, but he essentially had lost to a guy that also should not have been in the UFC and, fairly convincingly. After he lost to Jerome Rivera, he beats an 8-5 guy. Okay, 5-1. That guy's now 5-3. Victor Moreno was 5-0 at the time. He won a split decision. That guy's now 5-. I think it's 6-3. I think he's 5-3. This Jamie Londondo was 5-1. He's now 5-3. So then an 11-11, and then he signs to the UFC. So he had not beaten anybody worth of note on the regional scene. You can look at a couple records and say 5-1. Those guys lost to him and then lost their next fights after that. It wasn't exactly great guys. And one of them was a split decision. He hasn't been super active. He's had 6 fights over the last 4 years, and he just hasn't really beaten anybody. Then he debuts against Bondar. Bondar also has no cardio. So Bondar wins the first round. All 3 judges got Bondar winning the first round. As you mentioned, 4 takedowns. He's outstriking him. Second round, Bondar absolutely gasses, and Ronaldo takes advantage because he does have good cardio. So in some ways, it's like, well, O'Day will do the same thing. Well, the difference is that Dennis Bondar's got 2 fights in the UFC. 3 fights. I think he lost to Carlos Hernandez. Well, it should have been knocked out, but they ruled it a decision, like in the dying seconds. And he got his arm broken by Malcolm Gordon. Right? O'Day Osbourne's had 9 fights in the UFC and has fought in some really good guys and has a win over Charles Johnson. So there's levels to this. You can bank on Dennis Bondar gassing after 1 round. Bank on it. O'Day might go 2 rounds and then gas. And then if that's the case, well, then you need to put him away in the third. And whereas I do see Ronaldo Rodriguez pushing a hell of a pace, there's just not necessarily enough to suggest that he cleanly puts away O'Day Osbourne. So, man, I gotta go O'Day Osbourne. I don't love it, but the underdog money, it's a flyweight fight to begin with. I've got the guy that's veteran stature, veteran tenure in the division, striking game. To be honest, he's got a slicker striking game. I think he's the better counterpuncher. I think he's the longer guy. I think he should be able to touch him up with the jab. The offensive wrestling, to me, that's going to be key. Bondar is a power wrestler from Ukraine. He gets a takedown, big muscle takedown, and then you get back up and he has to do it again. O'Day wouldn't be like that. O'Day would get 1 takedown and then hold you down, get a hook in, hip ride you, take your back eventually, flatten you out, neutralize you, and then let the round expire. So as long as he doesn't overexert himself, he should be able to do that for 2 rounds and then survive the third. O'Day Osbourne plus money, but yeah, dude, it's O'Day Osbourne. How's he going to lose this time? We'll have to wait and see.
100%. All right, we got Irene Aldana taking on a big Norma Dumont. To straight pick 'em, homie. Who you got?
I don't really know. It's another good style clash. This one I've been kind of flip-flopping in my head. So on one hand, again, if you like grapplers, and we talked about it earlier, striker versus grappler, I tend to take the grappler. So in that sense, you would take Big Norm. She's a big gal, dude. She's literally the only 145er of the division. They're trying to get her to fight these fights at 135. You can see she's struggling to make the weight. She would prefer these catch weights. But all the same, I mean, she does what she does. BJJ black belt, very strong in the clinch. If she can take you down, great. If not, she can just wear on you in the clinch up against the cage, just kind of neutralize you and tick time away off the clock. So her striking's kind of robotic and stiff. I'm not saying she can't strike. She's got fundamentally sound enough boxing, but just not for a prolonged period of time. She's had a similar type matchup in her very last fight against Germaine de Randamie, similar to Irene Aldana, is a much better striker, is a lot more lateral, has better footwork, is got, just the faster fighter all around. But yeah, I mean, Germaine de Randamie was coming off like a 2-year-long layoff and had a kid and is 40. So it probably wasn't the best version of her. Norm wins the first round. Norm loses the second round. And then in the third round is able to finally get those takedowns neutralized. Overall, 6 takedowns in that fight, but it got outstruck 16-11. Nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. You got takedowns. You got top control. You're able to neutralize her. But there's going to be judges out there that are no longer looking at that. They're looking at damage. And Big Norm's very short in the damage department. Prior to that decision against Chelsea Chandler, she lands 47. Prior to that, against Carol Rosa, decision, she landed 35. Prior to that, against Danielle Wolf, she went 15 minutes with Danielle Wolf and landed 52. Just not enough. So therein lies the worries that Irene Aldana obviously is not the greatest defensive wrestler. And you look at that fight with Amanda Nunes, where she gives up 6 takedowns. She can't do nothing, Paul. Like, she's a fish out of water once she's flattened it on her back. And yeah, that's Amanda Nunes. But Big Norma is also very large and is a BJJ black belt. So if she gets taken down, yeah, she's going to get neutralized, and the judges are probably going to give it for her. It's that stand-up, is that she does put up crazy good volume. Her last fight against Carol Rosa, kind of a weird fight the way it played out with her getting her lead leg kicked off, but had landed 145, Against Holly Holm, she got neutralized the whole time, still put up 70, Her versus Vanessa Mello, 125. Her versus Lucy Pudilova, 119. Even in these fights where she's giving up a lot of takedowns, she'll still land 30, 40, 50 significant strikes. So the worry would be Norm probably takes her down. Norm probably controls her. But what if Norm gets outstruck like 50-20, but has 5 takedowns? Would you be certain that in front of a crowd that's begging for action, not the Apex where nobody gives a crap, it's like a live crowd and they paid a lot of money to be there, they're going to be happy with Big Norm stalling her, wall installing her for 10 minutes? 15 minutes need be, maybe a couple takedowns in the middle of the cage and just, get to half guard. Not really. You're not submitting Danielle Wolf. You're not submitting anybody. So black belt. No, her black belt is get on top of you and staple you to the mat. That's what her black belt entails. But it'd be a real boring fight. Now, Aldana is able to scramble and land some shots, or the round starts standing and Aldana lands something, or God forbid a referee hears the boos and says, stand up, right? And she lands something, then that in itself could just take the round away. So I don't know. I'm hesitant. What was the current line on it?
I have -110 both sides.
Yeah, exactly. The bookmaker knows exactly the same thing I'm talking about. Yeah. I'm going to take Irene Aldana because it's a love letter to Mexicans. And I just got to feel that if this is a close fight, they'll give it to the Mexican. But that's a shitty theory, so don't waste your money.
Yeah, funded by the Saudis.
yeah. Funded by your bankroll if you bet this fight, because it's just bad news.
I mean, it reeks of split decision. The fight's like -500 to go to decision and everything you laid out there. I mean, it's the exact... I mean, the big question, I suppose, it always is, and hence why she's got the nickname Big Norm, is we'll see if Norma's able to make weight on Saturday. Not that she won't fight, but she usually, it's many times that she's, came in at like 138, 139 even. So she struggles to get down to the 135-pound weight class. The fight screams split decision. Some books will allow like fight ends in split. That could be worth a look from a betting perspective. I'll side with grappling and pick Norma Dumont, but I mean at -110, I think that the books have this right. Like I really don't think there's a mathematical edge on this number whatsoever, but we'll find out on Saturday night. We got Manuel Torres taking on Ignacio Bahamondes. -120 for Torres, +100 for Ignacio. Who you got?
Yeah, so to me, it seems like Ignacio all day, but Ignacio has let me down a few times here and there. So let's discuss what could possibly go wrong for us. I like the fact the guy's 6'3" with a 75-inch reach. He's just the biggest lightweight that you're going to see on the roster. He's very long. He's got excellent Muay Thai. He's very durable. He has been stung and hurt a few times, but again, he's able to generally rally back from that and give a good account of himself. I mean, his losses, when you look at them, John McDessie, veteran performance, he still landed 112, and he's just a young kid. Split decision loss. But it was, Makdessi did style on him and bust him up pretty good. And then that Ludovic Klein fight, it's 1-1 going into the third round, and then Ludovic Klein's able to mix in the takedown. I'm a little bit worried that because he is so big, he's got those long limbs, that guys that have a wrestling heavy game plan or approach are going to be able to have a lot of success with them. Get him up against the cage, suck those hips out from underneath, get him on the, plant him at the base of the fence, and then go to work from there. Because you're that long, it's hard to generate that space required to have a big explosive get up to create this type of scramble needed to sometimes return to your feet. So guys that could grapple him, they're going to be a problem. Guys that are just fast and have excellent technical boxing can matador him from the outside. But he's going to fight for your dollar every single time. He'll be coming forward. He'll be throwing knees. He'll be throwing elbows. He throws some of the best front kicks and push kicks in the game. That fight with Roosevelt Roberts, he cashed the inside the distance by 5 seconds with a spinning wheel kick. And if you look at the transition, I mean, the fight's over. There's 10 seconds left. He's on top of him on the ground, and he lets him up so that Roosevelt can get up so that he can take his head off with a spinning wheel kick. The kid's violent. He's got that killer instinct. He wants to finish at all times. Just again, there's going to be these learning curve moments where he has to lose in order to realize what went wrong. Ludovic Klein's jacked. Ludovic Klein, no idea how he passes a drug test every time he competes. He's a top competitor. To be competitive with him, 1-1 going in the third, it's still good stuff. Now, I have seen him rocked a few times in the past, but again, you've not seen him knocked out. His durability seems to be there, 15-minute cardio all day, and he does have an 85% takedown defense. So as much as I can say it's not great because he's so goddamn tall, he's got a massive amount of leverage and he's very heavy. So Ludovic Klein got him down 3 times. Wrong Zoo, kind of a slip up. Wrong Zoo did get him down once. And that's it, right? Not a whole lot of guys have necessarily tried, but because he's so big and he's so long and he throws knees straight up the middle, it's like they're worried about necessarily shooting in on him. Manuel Torres, meanwhile, this is going to make for a good fight because Manuel Torres, he's the man. He's looking for a 50K bonus every time. And you look at his regional show record, Paul, it's all first-round finishes. Danny Maros, first-round rear naked choke. This Petron Rincon, first-round finish. Daniel Verga, first-round rear naked choke. Carlos Canada, 25-second guillotine. First-round knockout on the Contender Series versus Colton Englund. First-round knockout against Frank Camacho. First-round knockout against Nicholas Mata. First-round rear naked choke against Chris Duncan. That's what he does. And as much as we love it, and everybody loves it, and if you want to bet this guy, bet him by the first-round finish. Probably get a juicy prop out of it. That's how he fights. If you can get him beyond that, his grappling's not great. So even though he shows a lot of submission wins, I don't think he's going to just out-grapple Bahamondes for 15 minutes. Knocking out Bahamondes, let alone knocking Bahamondes out in the very first round, that ain't going to be that easy. And if he starts to fatigue and slow at any point, he is up shit's creek without a paddle because Bahamondes ain't going nowhere, man. He's a giant. He throws murderous technique. He's only getting older and more mature fight to fight, filling out this frame even more, and he's not going to take his foot off the gas. So Manuel Torres will give you an interesting first 5 minutes. He'll come after you. But you watch his last fight with Chris Duncan. Duncan rocks him. Duncan rocks him and then shoots a takedown. Why? Don't know. But once he shoots that takedown and allow Manuel Torres to kind of recover, then Manuel Torres shoots a takedown of his own. He takes the back. He gets the rear naked choke. I think he can get knocked out. I think he can get gassed out. And in this fight, I think both things happen. I think Bahamondes maybe has to overcome a difficult first round, right? And then in the second round, you're going to see Torres start to slow down. Bahamondes pick up that pace. Could be a third round finish, could be a late second round finish. But I think at some point, fatigue and damage starts to accumulate. Bahamondes puts him away. So this is another fight similar to Zellhuber. They're the same odds, like they're minus 200, minus 220, minus 230 type favorites, and they're pure striking battles. So the chances of somebody just getting clipped in this chaotic happening is there, but they're both the more refined guys, the longer guys, the better strikers with solid cardio and solid proven durability. And when this chaotic noise of the sphere starts happening and all these crazy things starts happening, I want the guy that's got 15 minutes of cardio, great output, has fought in the organization enough times to accrue solid experience, and then go out and put it on display. So Bahamondes is probably another one of these guys I'm going to have to play a little heavier than I'd like to this week, but I'm going to do it because I like him.
He's got a lot of size. He has size on pretty much everybody. He's a 6'3", 70, high 70s in terms of his reach. Just kind of avoid maybe the chaos because what's his Manuel Torres's stats and you go through his record. It's absolutely chaos, right?
He's crazy. I
I
love
mean,
his nickname's Loco, isn't it?
El Loco. I mean, he fits the
I'm gonna look that
description.
up.
He ain't lying.
Yeah, right,
He
right.
ain't
Yeah.
lying. He ain't lying about that nickname.
No, he's
He
not
he
lying.
deserves it. It's incredible. It's super super fun as long as it lasts. But you know, like you go back to 2019, his loss is like lost by knee bar to some guy I've never heard of before. He's 7-3 now. The guy that he lost to, and then Mahatma Garcia's 13-11. It's like, so maybe he's got some submission skills, but yeah, it'll be interesting. It's like Bahamondes, mind your P's and Q's. He's able to go to decision. His chin is held up. Just don't get taken down early while you're dry. And you know, I'm sure the fans will be, you know, raring to go, wanting a crazy start to this fight. But I'm with you. Like in terms of the size, reach, technical skill, volume, ability to fight 15 minutes, experience against you know, well-seasoned veterans of the game. It's all Ignacio, and he's plus 100. So I'm with you there. Let's move on down. We've got Yazmin Jauregui taking on Ketlen Souza. Jauregui is a minus 450 favorite. She's the biggest favorite on the card. Ketlen Souza can be had for plus 350. CF, no, can't do that. Can't do the CF dot model here, but I hate this number. I hate a lot about this because like Yazmin, she's young, she's developing, she's been improving a whole bunch, Cody, but like I think we've seen kind of some limitations early in their career here. You know, beating Estela Nunez, round one was a little bit rough there. But Nunez kind of gasses out, and she's able to get her out of there. The fight against Lucindo, I mean, Lucindo and her, probably two great prospects to look forward to down the line, and it played out very competitive between the two of them. Got knocked out by Denise Gomez, which a lot of people did not see coming, and had a very competitive fight against Sam Page Hughes last time out. So my thing here is like it's the minus 450. I think Yazmin gets the win here. I think this fight is set up for her to get the win. Ketlen Souza doesn't have much of a grappling game to speak of, and I think that's what she would need to be able to exploit this matchup. And, you know, getting taken down twice by Marnik, man, wasn't exactly like going to decision, not really, you know, winning convincingly, but not like absolutely dominating and blowing through somebody who's probably a bottom tier fighter. It all makes sense why Yazmin's the favorite here, but you know me, minus 450 women's MMA. I can't touch that with a 10-foot pole. It'll be my pick, but not much plan in betting it. What about you?
Yeah, well, minus 450, they're obviously trying to scare you off of it because they know that Jauregui probably goes out here and wins. She's a legitimate prospect who's got some legitimate wins in the UFC, 3-1 now, and she's only 25 years old. So I think we all look back to the Denise Gomez knockout loss in 20 seconds, and it's a big enough red flag that you would never want to bet this girl over minus 450 over anybody, simply because if you can't take a punch in this division, it's not going to go too well for you. So I think it was more so just she got caught. Young fighter, still very green and makes a mistake. But you mentioned her versus Lucindo. Lucindo's a tremendous fighter, a legitimate prospect. And she goes out there and proves that she's the better prospect. Estela Nunez did rock her in the first. She relied on Estela gassing out. But once Estela gassed out, I mean, 67 significant strikes and 2 knockdowns through not even 2 full rounds. Like 9 minutes of action, she had landed 67. So we're getting volume. And then lost into Denise Gomez. The Sam Hughes fight, this to me was the eye-opener. So Sam Hughes is kind of a crafty veteran. What she does well is that she's able to, where she can't out-finesse opponents necessarily technique-wise, she's a little bit rugged. She's willing to fight you in the clinch. She comes forward. She pushes 15 minutes of action. And if you're there to get exposed, she'll expose you. Jauregui showed up to that fight in very good physical shape. She's very strong physically, both in the clinch, getting into the pocket with her. She's got good boxing combinations. And then you try to grab a hold of her, and she's just not there to be held. Sam Hughes had very little success in the clinch, very little success at range. It's another fight that 15 minutes, but she lands 94 significant strikes, a career high. So you know you get the strength, the physicality, volume, boxing technique, She's pretty difficult to take down, and I think offensively she'll be able to muscle down opponents more often than not. Ketlen Souza comes to the UFC as the former Invicta champ, but then after that she gets a super tough debut, man. Karine Silva is not easy work, but she got hurt in that fight. I'm pretty sure she had a knee injury, takes, damn near a full year off, and then comes back from that year off against Merrick's man. And like you said, giving up the 2 takedowns, problematic. Gave up the takedown easy against Karine Silva. Takedown defense is going to be an issue. But beyond that, in 15 minutes against a very low-level opponent, didn't really land anything huge. Landed some okay volume at 80, but 80 is not going to be enough against Jauregui. The bigger shots and more shots are going to be coming from Jauregui. Your offensive grappling isn't enough to try to exploit Jauregui in that department, but hers is probably going to be enough to take down Ketlen Souza if need be. So I get it because I think she wins this fight wherever it takes place, but it is women's MMA, and Jauregui is someone that has been knocked out in 20 seconds before, and it is probably a big pressure situation because she's supposed to win, and it's this Mexican Independence Day card, whatever the case may be. Yeah, maybe banana peel pricing at some point rears its ugly head, but I think she wins this fight fairly convincingly at a minus 450. Yeah, not great, but pay the cost to be the boss, I guess.
I guess so. All right, we got Josh Van taking on Edgar Chairez, minus 230 for Josh Van, plus 190 for Chairez. I mean, it was only 2 months ago, Cody, like pretty much to the day, that Josh Van got knocked out bad in round 3 by Charles Johnson. Bit of a quick turnaround. Obviously, he's coming in on short notice as a replacement in this fight. I like Josh Van. I think the volume in this fight is, especially, sometimes Van starts a little bit slow, but like he kind of turns it on as time goes on. And he can put up 200 significant strikes. I think Josh Van wins. I think this is a stylistic matchup. Chairez has not successfully landed a takedown in any of his UFC fights so far. It's another thing that I really think would be a path for him if he were trying to beat Josh Van here. I like Van. My only reservation here is that 2-month layoff. He's young. It was a pretty nasty knockout. He got clipped pretty hard there. He's young, and maybe the recovery's way faster, but that is my one reservation about laying the wood on Josh Van, is that it was literally 2 months ago that he got knocked out real bad. But he'll be my pick. What about you?
Yeah, I got some words for this kid too. I mean, because he's only 22, the knockout won't affect him, but it will affect him long term. And I'd like to know who his handler is. I'd like to know who his management is. Yeah, I'd just like to know what the thought process with this kid is, because I mean, he's obviously really talented. We all like him. He's got a ton of great skills, but I mean, he makes his amateur debut less than 4 years ago. Very first amateur fight, less than 4 years ago. They had him fight, wins. He fights 3 months later. He fights 3 weeks later. He fights 2 months later. And then he makes his pro debut 10 months after his very first amateur fight. 4 amateur fights in a 10-month period of time. Then he makes his pro debut. His pro debut, he fights. He fights 3 weeks after his pro debut. He fought 3 weeks after that. He fought 3 weeks after that. He fought 6 weeks after that. A month after that. 3 months after that. Basically, what I'm getting at is by the time 2023 ends, the kid's got 10 pro fights in 2 years' time, plus the 4 amateur fights in 10 months' time. All he does is fight every other month as much as he possibly can. And I get it, you're 22 years old, you're fresh, you're youthful, you can still take the damage. But he's got one hell of a schedule, man. Because he's winning fights and he's looking good and he's a young prospect, they signed him to the UFC, and these fights haven't been easy, man. He beat Zalga Zumagulov in his debut as a huge underdog, right? Zalga's cracked him a couple good shots. It was a hell of a good fight, but he did beat Zalgas. His fight with Kevin Borges, he gets chewed up in the first round, but he makes a comeback. His fight with Felipe Bunes, he loses the first round, but he makes a comeback. His fight with Charles Johnson, and now you're starting to see the limitations, and not limitations to this kid's not going to be some great prospect, but he fights all of the time. And keep in mind, he beats Bunes, and then they book him versus Luis Roca. Luis Roca pulls out, so they book him 2 months later against Sumaderji. Sumaderji pulls out, so they offered him Tatsuya Taira. Tatsuya Taira pulled out, so they offered him Tagir Ulanbekov. Ulanbekov pulled out, so he fought Charles Johnson. Like, at what point do you say, whoa, and let's take 6 months off and just get this kid better in the gym. I understand he's getting better fight to fight because he's getting real-time action experience. But man, at some point you got to think to yourself, the kid's young and he's taking a lot of damage, both in the fights and training, trains and fights all the time. And we can only attest to this because we're a Canadian, but how many kids did you go to high school with that were just unbelievable hockey players that have been doing it since they were 4 or 5 years old? And as soon as they went to a party and drank a few beers and did a little cocaine, they never went back to practice, man. That was their hockey dreams were done. You do something all the time for 15 years, then it burns you out. And I'm not saying he's burnt out. I think this kid's unreal. He coming off a knockout loss 8 weeks ago, 2 months ago, like you said, almost to the day. First time he's been knocked out. First time he's been finished. Don't tell me it wasn't that bad. Beautiful left hook to a beautiful uppercut. Just flattens him on his back. Mm-hmm. Okay. He's had some almost 20 fights over the last less than 4 years. And it's just like, let's throw him back in there. So, man, he's so good. The problem is at some point you're doing him a disservice. Yeah, he's getting paid. Yeah, he's making some money, but guys have tried that in the past. Look at those guys like Neil Magny and Donald Cerrone. Why didn't they do that for 2 years in a row? Why didn't they fight 6-7 times for multiple years? Because it seriously burnt their bodies 100%. So them throwing him back in there, man, like I don't love it. Now Edgar Chairez, meanwhile, you look past this guy, but again, this is another fight where it's 2 flyweights, so it's going to be high action, high pace. Both guys are exchanging. There's going to be lots going on, and you wouldn't want to bet Josh Van coming off the loss, coming off a couple red flags, couple question marks as any type of favorite. But keep this in mind with Edgar Chairez, man. This is a guy that was outstriking Tatsuya Taira and he dropped Tatsuya Taira. Clean knockdown landed against him. Does some really good work in that fight. Couldn't keep Taira off of him. And that's the reason he ended up getting, by the numbers, he got outstruck because of the groundwork. But stand up, he's being Taira. His fights with Lacerda is supposed to be some great stand-up guy. The fact that he got booked against this guy over and over again, I think took away from the general idea that he's still only 28. He hits pretty hard. His technique is not as refined. He's not as clean as Josh Van is, but he's probably got a slight power advantage. He's Mexican grit and durability, so he's going to be in your face. He can push at pretty decent pace. And I don't know, man. I mean, outside of him jumping guillotines on Tatsuya Taira, proving some questionable ring IQ, is that like he's a fighter, man. He's going to go out there and he's going to give you a hell of a go. So I, like you, am picking Van, but it's way better live betting opportunity considering Van has dropped a number of first rounds. Even in that Charles Johnson fight, one judge had him up 2, one judge had him down 2. So he's a bit of a slow starter for my money's worth. I would think that you play this after the first round. If you think he's going to make this miraculous second round comeback and put this volume up, if you think that Edgar is starting to slow down or doesn't look that good or whatever the case may be, I just feel like I'll have way more information downloaded after 5 minutes of action and then be able to make a better educated choice than taking Josh Van pre-flop at this favorite status against a guy that I actually do respect. And if it was all things equal, Josh Van, again, the pick for me is going to be Josh Van. I don't like how you take a young kid like this and operate his career in that manner. And let me be very clear with this. Raul Rosa, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, he's what, 20 years old, 19 years old? He's just a kid. Should he be fighting as often as he does? Yes, because when you see him fight, he doesn't take damage. He's a grappler. Grappling is how you negate somebody and you don't get hurt. So if you're on Terrence Mitchell, it's great. If you backpacked a guy for 3 rounds, no problem. Even in his loss to Christian Rodriguez, he got tired near the end. He does not take a ton of damage. You'll see these other young prospects that grapple, they're not getting hit a whole lot. They mostly got their opponents on the ground. Yeah, they might hit you with an elbow off their back, but you're not generating that same force. It's these young 21, 22-year-old strikers. And you've seen this time and time again, very talented strikers, and then all their fights are car crashes because that's what striking is. So at some point, you can never beat Floyd Mayweather. You can't just hit the guy a bunch of times and not get hit. And even Floyd, people are like, oh, Floyd's the best defensive fighter of all time. Fact. That's a fact. And over 12 rounds, he would average 71 or 72 times hit. So even the greatest defensive fighter of all time is getting hit 72 times on average per fight. And even Floyd has, I don't know, I'm not going to say he's got CTE and he's never been the sharpest cat, but like he don't sound as sharp as he used to. Nobody can deny that. That's just general wear and tear. Floyd's in his 40s. It's fine. It catches up to you. I don't want to see Van at that point, right? Just super talented kid. Need to manage him a little bit better. I think he wins this fight, sure, but I could see him taking a lot of damage in this fight as well, and I'm hoping that's not the case.
All right, and finally, we got Raul Rosas taking on Aoriqileng. Rosas, a minus 800 favorite, biggest favorite on the card. Aoriqileng can be had for plus 550. I mean, you go through Aoriqileng's recent fights, right? Daniel Marcos last time out was absolutely blowing the doors off of him. It was not very competitive. There's a low blow. I'm not Aoriqileng's testicles, so I don't exactly know, but it looked kind of like he was like looking for his way out the door because he knew what the result was going to be. Marcos was finding his timing and was well on his way, I think, to finding a finish against him. Johnny Munoz Jr., I mean, he got 4 takedowns against him. That's a big red flag when you're taking on Raul Rosas. Ayman Zahabi knocked him out in a minute. And Jay Perrin took him down 3 times. Everything about what Aoriqileng brings to the table here, it leads me to believe that Raul Rosas does whatever the hell he wants to him. Is he young? Is he impressionable? Is he a little bit lacking? Yes, but like just going, even though it was, his one falter in his career, just being able to go to decision against somebody with the skill set of Christian Rodriguez, like I think you'll look back on that 5 years from now and be like, that wasn't all that bad. And frankly, he dominated the grappling early in that fight and then kind of gassed out. Rosas kills him. The submission prop is a little bit shorter than I would like. If I was to like degen a prop in this fight, it would be his KO because I think that's like plus 500 or so. Whereas like the submission prop is like minus 165, yada, yada, yada. But yeah, I think Rosas absolutely does whatever the hell he wants to him in this fight. He will find the takedowns. Submission is definitely more likely, but maybe he pounds him out. Raul Rosas, he is your quote-unquote lock this week. What's your take?
Yeah, exactly. Listen, he's got such a great ability to take the back on people that it's not only just the takedown, it's that he takes a takedown, right to back control, right to a body triangle, right to you're not going anywhere. He can flatten you out and TKO you. He can just punch you from back mount or generally likes the rear naked choke. And for my money's worth, I feel like he goes with the submission. Again, it's possible, similar situation to Terrence Mitchell. Maybe he just flattens this guy out and knocks him out. But I look at that Ricky Turcios fight, and the UFC is doing a good job here, right? Debut against Jay Perrin, that's easy money, and he makes it look like easy money. Sure, he's a 19-year-old kid fighting a 30-year-old man, but he just chokes him out, neck crank, first round, easy. Giving him Christian Rodriguez an uber prospect, that's testing where his ceiling's at. Looked great in the first round, awesome in the first round, fades in the second and the third. Now they reeled it back. Terrence Mitchell, Ricky Turcios, Aoriqileng, that's the way you build up a guy properly. And yeah, he's not taking all this damage. So not like a Josh Van who you call him every 8 weeks to take on these murderous power punchers. Like, no, it's nothing like that. It's that he can take these fights, accrued a lot of experience, get paid, and just continues to build his profile. When I looked at that fight with Ricky Turcios, and we were playing him pretty heavy in that spot, Ricky's 31 years old. He's in the prime of his life. He trains at Team Alpha Male in a room full of wrestlers. He's never been submitted in his professional career. He's fought some decent guys like Brady Heastan. To choke him out, yeah, man, that means something. Mm-hmm. And for the record, Rosas lost the first round on 2 of the 3 judges' scorecards. So it wasn't like it was all smooth sailing. Ricky did a good job in the first round of keeping him at bay, keeping the fight standing, landing the better shots. It's that this kid shored up the cardio issues. You think he's gassing out against Christian Rodriguez? He's 18 years old. He's 19 years old. He had an adrenaline dump after a crazy first round that he dominated in. Now he's pacing himself a little bit. He'll still get the takedowns. He'll still get to the back take. He'll still get under your chin. Even if he doesn't, just like Jay Perrin, he'll still face crank you need be. He's very strong. He's very technical for his age, and he's just getting bigger and better by the day. At some point, he'll probably have to leave the weight class because I think he'll just outgrow it. But for now, that physicality and that ability to take you down is huge. So if you're the UFC, what you don't book him with is you don't book him against these Russian guys. You don't book him against these D1 All-Americans. You don't book him against these guys that got very deep Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. You book him against a guy like Aoriqileng, who's a brawler. He's flat-footed. He's got a 58% takedown defense in the UFC, which is not going to cut it against a guy like Rosas. And as you mentioned, it's not just he's got poor takedown defense. Johnny Munoz actually wrestled in college, so I'll give him that. But Jay Perrin took him down 3 times, man. Like these are very problematic because now he's going to take on paper. He's taking on the best wrestler, best grappler that he has in quite some time. The path to victory is clearly there. You mentioned that he's also been knocked out by Ayman Zahabi. Similar to Chase Hooper, when you get so focused on he's going to try to grapple me, they'll punch you in the face and they can knock you down. You've seen Rosas knock down Terrence Mitchell. He's got a little bit of pop in his shot. I wouldn't completely outrule that he's maybe able to clip Aoriqileng with something. But I got enough respect for Aoriqileng to believe probably not going to get knocked out by Rosa. More probably get taken down, give up your back, give up the rear naked choke. Rosa cashes. I hate under 1.5 so bad, but he could probably make this look easy if he does everything need be. And if not, maybe he takes him out later in the second round. But it's a style clash that very, very, very seriously favors Raul Rosas, who's a legitimate prospect. UFC knows it. They want to hear him say chewy-wee or whatever the hell he says on the microphone afterwards. I really don't know. But they want a chewy-wee. The crowd is the very first fight on the card, so they're not quite that drunk yet. So I don't know if they'll be into the chewy-wee, but regardless, they know what they got on their hands here. It's a hot prospect, and Dana's been very adamant of Mexican love letter and the Mexicans and this and that, but he's been very adamant that the sport won't really survive long term without the Hispanic demographic. Because the same way in boxing, it's like Spanish fight fans, Mexican fight fans, like they're the most diehard fight fans in the game, and their roots are so deeply in boxing that's kind of prefer what they like. The UFC, they'll get a Mexican champion. Cain Velasquez wasn't really even Mexican. He was more of an American, lives in America. They pushed him to the moon. Then they eventually able to get Alexa Grasso, and they were able to get Brendan Moreno, and they're able to get legitimate champions. And now they've got good fighters. Diego Lopes is technically Brazilian, but they've got guys, and they're pushing them on this card, certainly. But he's been very adamant that like it's crucial for the survival of the organization to break into this market. So yeah, it's great to have a 31-year-old champion like Alexa Grasso, the face of it. It's good to have all that stuff, but you need to invest in who's this next kid that's going to be Mexican Khabib. They were calling him Mexican Khabib for a while. This kid could be legit, and the UFC understands that, and they need to build him up with easy victories on the way there. So I think he absolutely rolls in this Aoriqileng spot.
100%. All right, we are just about out of time, Cody, but before we go, hit him with the PRP.
Yeah, so last week, crazy. Went with a bunch of underdogs, and quite literally none of them won. Actually, that's a lie. I took Padilla on the show, and then my you know what's shriveled up inside of me, and I went the other way. Same way I tweeted. We talked about how Jared Mearshart was going to beat Evan Shabazian, picked him on the show, ended up going Shabazian on the PRP because I'm a fool. Padilla was actually the only underdog. The rest of them all clunked it out, and I was on the receiving end of that. So this week, let's tighten it up. Let's take some favorites. We're going to go with Merab Dvalishvili, even money. Alexa Grasso, basically even money. Brian Ortega, dog number 1. Zellhuber. Ode Osbourne, dog number 2. Irene Aldana. Ignacio Bahamondes. Yazmin Jauregui. Josh Van, and Raul Rosas. So only 10 fights this week, so a little shorter size. But yeah, I'm going to wait for weigh-ins. A couple of these people I'm not certain will look great on the scales, but we'll have to wait for that to finalize like the major plays. And then besides that, yeah, sprinkle a couple round 3 props or a couple. Ode Osbourne again, him a couple days ago was much better than you can get the line at now. I don't know. I know I have crapped on this card on terms of like they talked so much smack about it was going to be great, and now it has to live up to that. Yeah, when you look at it, it's like, what's going to be fight of the night? Oh, geez, O'Malley Dvalishvili would be your front runner. Oh, Lopes versus Brian Ortega. Oh, that'd be fight of the night. Ribovics versus Daniel Zellhuber. Yeah, okay, those guys are probably cashing 50 Gs. Ignacio Bahamondes versus Manuel Torres. I mean, Manuel Torres on his own. Yeah, that's going to be absolutely unreal. Ketlen Souza versus Jauregui. That's going to be good. They're going to be striking it out. It's going to be high volume. You may not like that style of fighting. That's going to be a fun fight. Chairez versus yeah. And then the very first fight is Raul Rosas. So name value, not a great card. Big, thick, highly anticipated matchups, not a good card. Pure violence, great card. And that is a love letter to the Mexican people. So I take it, Post, honestly. I take it.
Yeah, when you were talking smack about it last week, I was just like, it looks okay for me. But maybe like, we've got like Stockholm syndrome at this point. We watch UFC every single week. So it's like you go back 5-6 years, maybe these pay-per-views were always a little bit more flush, but That's just, the nature of the beast in the year 2024 is that there's other promotions offering better packages for certain fighters, and you can't have all of the fighters in one place anymore. It is what it is. But that is it for us this week. Hope you enjoyed the show. For producer Jared and Cody Saftic, I'm Paul Shaughnessy saying goodbye and good luck.